but I think this is one of those first years that I think this is like the most balanced tournament from top to bottom. Quite literally, any team can get beat on any given day
Yep.
at any given time just because of the situation that we're in. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Dark Horse Sports Podcast. My name is Scott Mitchell.
And I'm Jalen Leach.
And in today's episode and covering mid-majors, we, of course, have to talk about our predictions for the Cinderella runs upcoming this weekend in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So we're going to hop right into it. We're going to give you who we think are poised to make a deep tournament run out of the mid-major teams within the tournament.
So, I guess to get things started, one thing that I've learned, Scotty, from watching years of, about 20 years or so of NCAA tournaments is that a few things go a long way. And one thing is if you have a special player. So some players that always come to my mind, Steph Curry back in the day when we were younger, Gordon Hayward leading their mid-major programs to Cinderella runs. Gordon Hayward went all the way to the championship game. Steph, I think, Elite Eight.
Final Four. It was Elite Eight, Final Four. I can't remember.
One of those.
It was deep.
Yeah, so my first team that I have is led by one of those guys that we'll be seeing in the NBA either next year if he decides to come, whenever he decides to leave. But the Ohio Bobcats, so their first game is against UVA. This team, I like this team a lot, mostly because, so they lost earlier in the season, like the first or second week of the year to Illinois by 2 at Illinois. And what we know about Illinois now is that was a very good loss for them because Illinois is one of the top teams in the country. We didn't know that at the time, but we know that now. And their best player, Jason Preston, he averages 17, 7, and 7 on the season, which is, some NBA numbers if you ask me, especially looking at his rebound and assist numbers at being 6'4" guard. He had 31 and 8 at Illinois. So, and one thing that I learned looking over at some of their stats is they're not a one-man wrecking crew, though. They have 5 players actually averaging double figures. And, if you can live off of one player for as long as you can and then have other guys just knock down shots when they're open, that's an easy way to win in a tournament. And another way to do it, defending the 3-ball, and they only give up 33% from deep all season. So I look at Ohio to potentially give UVA problems and some other teams problems down the line.
Yeah, I agree. Just the issue, when you play a team like UVA who just thrives on bad basketball,
yes.
That's what they do. They live to just they're fine with the game ending in 80 total points.
Yes.
In fact, they prefer it. So it's just really difficult to say from an offensive perspective what's going to come out there. But ultimately, defense is going to win championships, and I think that they got a real shot to make a deep run. Very similar, though. I'm going to go with the UNCG Spartans. SoCon tournament team. I think, personally for me, I think the SoCon is one of the most underrated mid-major conferences for basketball year in, year out. Real competitive teams. Last year, ECSU would have gotten an at-large bid.
Yep.
They still won. They still won the SoCon tournament. And I think UNCG was very similar this year. Quite frankly, even if they didn't win, only 8 losses on the year. I think they really could have deserved an at-large bid. But similar to the Ohio Bobcats, they got one guy who really just does it all for them. Just to list off some of his accomplishments since getting to Greensboro. In 2017 and 18, he was SoCon All-Freshman. 2018 and 2019, SoCon Defensive Player of the Year and First Team All-SoCon. And SoCon All-Tournament. And 2019-2020, SoCon Player of the Year, SoCon Defensive Player of the Year, and, of course, First Team All-SoCon. So, no, he's got the pedigree. He's got the ability to compete. He's currently averaging 4 assists and two 2.5 steals per game,
Nice.
on top of 19 points per game. I think the one issue is that it's Florida State in the first round. Florida State, from what I've been able to watch, their bread and butter is just making you uncomfortable on offense. They're gonna full court press you. They're not gonna let you get in fast break situations. But to counter that, UNCG is the same way. They're gonna full court press you. They're gonna make you feel awkward on offense, and I think that's why Isaiah Miller is the best defensive player in the Southern Conference. But ultimately what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to rely on the other players picking it up, because I can almost guarantee you that Isaiah Miller is going to be catching a double team pretty much the whole game.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, UNCG, I watched their tournament run that they had, because Wes Miller, Tar Heel legend, if you will, at least around
infamous.
At least around these areas. Yeah, he's definitely a household name.
He's infamous.
I like his philosophy that he's running down there, because it's very similar to basically what he was taught at UNC Chapel Hill, and he's basically doing that, running everything through the point guard position, and having him set up everything and potentially be finishing plays at the rim, finishing plays from three, doing whatever he can. And like you said, the defense is what wins, and that's just what it is. And I mean, to add to UNCG, just looking at my next team is another team that defends the perimeter very well, is the North Texas Mean Green. And basically what I like from this team, so they shoot 38% from three themselves. They have 5 guys on their roster that shoot at least 37% from three. And if you're taking a lot of threes, you're going to have to make a lot of threes. And that's just what it is. And they have 4 players averaging double figures and shooting 45 to 50% from the field. So they take the shots that they want to take, and on defense, they're taking away the shots that you want to take, They gave up no more than 57 points in their conference tournament. I know, 57. They didn't give up 60 once in basically playing 4 games in 3 nights or whatever the tournament is. So, I mean, for a team, you can't ask for a better philosophy going into an NCAA tournament. If you play great defense, taking away the shots that your opponent wants, playing at your pace and getting the shots that you want, I mean, that's just going to be a recipe for success. And if North Texas can play their pace, they're going to win.
No, I 100% agree. Like I said, defense wins championships. We saw that when UVA went to back-to-back NCAA titles. They lived on defense, and they're perfectly fine setting up with 80. If the total game score is 80 points, they're perfectly fine with that. And North Texas seems to have a very similar play style. But for me, another one that I'm looking at is the Winthrop Eagles. Only 1 loss on the year, which even in a COVID season, no matter what kind of conference you're in, 1 loss is so impressive. Yep. So impressive. Especially considering their conference, teams like UNCA, teams that just have some serious talent, that just, another one of those conferences that doesn't get the respect that they deserve.
Yep.
But ultimately, the thing that's most impressive to me about the Winthrop Eagles is their balanced attack. 4 players averaging double figures. But ultimately, I'm going to butcher his name. Chandler Vaudrin. He's averaging – I hope I got that, dude. He's averaging 12 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He's on 48% from the field, 38% from the 3. 6'7" guard. When almost averaging a triple double is so impressive. So impressive. But on top of that, Adonis Arms, their guard, he's averaging 10. Charles Faldrin, another guard, he's averaging 10. DJ Burns Jr., the forward, he's averaging 10. Josh Corbin's averaging 7. Michael Anumba is averaging 6.5. So you have a bunch of guys who can't go and get the buckets that they need. It's going to be a very balanced attack. You're going to be able to key in on one player. And that obviously is going to make a huge problem for Villanova.
Yeah, and you mentioned Villanova. They're one of those Villanova Yeah, hit or miss. They're just...
hit or miss. They're going to the ship or they're losing in the first round.
Exactly. And they're like that every single year. And you saw it even in the Big East tournament where they didn't get the job done. And Patrick Ewing and Georgetown actually went on to go win that. But that, with Villanova and Virginia, those teams are very, very hit or miss. And so for my third team, I have another team playing a little bit of hero ball, if you will. Another guy that could potentially go on a historic run here, and that's Oral Roberts. They're a 15 seed, and they play Ohio State in their first matchup. And they have the nation's leading scorer, Max Umbus. He's averaging just over 24 points a game. He had a big, huge game against Oklahoma State at 33 in that game. He shoots 39% from three. The team overall shoots 39% from three, including 5 shooting 37% or better. And then they also have a big man that gets it done inside. It's Kevin O'Connor, averaging just under 20 points a game and 9.5 rebounds. And one thing that I think gets overlooked come this time of year, just because it's not something that the average fan can just, look at and be amazed by, is free throw shooting. And Oral Roberts, they have 5 players shooting at least 80% from the free throw line. So in a late game situation, in a one or two possession game, that could be the ultimate factor to get some of these mid-major programs over the hump in 1 or 2 games in the tournament, is free throw shooting. So a team that shoots the 3 ball well and can shoot the ball well from the free throw line, I think they're a good look for a team that could end up making a run.
Yeah, a real recipe for success is just a team who just gets the ball in the bucket.
But
this is really what it is. If finding a way to get the ball in the hoop, you shoot so well from the 3-point line. A lot of teams, Steph Curry and Davidson back in the day. We give Steph Curry a lot of credit because he deserves every single bit of it. But he was not the only one that was lights out behind that line. If you got a team that's a solid 3-point shooting team, you can upset almost anyone on any given day.
Absolutely.
If you're feeling up behind the 3-point line, nothing sucks the wind out of anyone's sail in a momentum, but either in a fantastic dunk or an impressive 3. That's really all it is. And ability to do that's really important.
Absolutely.
So for me, this is going to be an interesting one. So I have the VCU Rams. And I think they are poised. That they have all the potential in the world to make a real good run, especially because their first game is against a favorable Oregon team. The Pac-12 was mediocre this year at best. I think Oregon ended up winning not the tournament. They ended up winning the regular season for the Pac-12, but Oregon State won the Pac-12 tournament championship. It just wasn't a solid year for the Pac-12. They weren't as competitive as they typically are, or they typically have at least one team that has legitimate strength to go deep in the playoffs. And this year, just what I don't see it being it. So a favorable matchup against Oregon to start it out is always in your favor. However, the one issue that's going to plague the VCU Rams is whether Nahshon Highland is able to play. He's kind of have a nagging injury from the conference championship against St. Bonaventure. But currently he's averaging 19.5 points per game. And when you have someone who's averaging 20 a game, you got a real shot.
Yep.
45% from the field, 38% from the 3-point line, 86% from the free throw line. 4.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals a game. Nahshon Highland will be the deciding factor on how well this VCU Rams team performs in the NCAA tournament. Without him, I just don't foresee VCU making it past the first round. And you and I talked about this a lot off air. A lot of these teams that we're mentioning have legitimate shots, but it's that first round that's going to be the dictator of that.
Yep.
UNCG can make a real run, but they got Florida State in the first round.
Yep.
There are just teams that are like that. Winthrop, same way. Winthrop has, the potential to beat Villanova and then either play North Texas or Purdue.
Yep.
According to Jalen has North Texas going. So it's just one of those things that there are teams that have legitimate Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four runs in them if they can make it out of that first Friday.
Yep. And another thing that I truly love about the NCAA tournament is that it's kind of like what I liked about the NBA bubble last season. It was, okay, we're truly going to see who the best performing team during this specific season is because it's neutral site games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be...
And you're more or less taking the fans out of it.
Exactly. It's going to be...
You're not going to have like a home court atmosphere going on.
No.
So you're not going to have a team who's from close to Indianapolis who's just going to have their entire student fan base there.
Exactly.
That's going to cheer you on. As compared to some team who's like from Arizona who can have 100 kids actually make the trip.
Exactly.
So the bubble situation is really going to show you like what teams are poised as teams that don't rely on the fan atmosphere.
Yeah, and it's just gonna be an interesting situation. I think a lot of the mid-major teams can truly make runs this year because it was just a unique season altogether. And I wouldn't be shocked just because, I mean, it's been a year of anything can happen, truly. So, I mean, Duke's not in the tournament. And this is the first
Kentucky's not in the
missed.
tournament.
This is the first
Kentucky's not in
tournament.
the tournament.
This is the first tournament Duke has missed since we've been alive.
Live.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah. So, it's just, I hope some of these mid-major programs truly get over the hump this year.
And I think that this really is the year to do it. I think of all the years, you know, the one seeds, I think this is one of those first years that I think this is like the most balanced tournament from top to bottom. Quite literally, any team can get beat on any given day,
Yep.
at any given time, just because of the situation that we're in. You know, we're in a pandemic. These guys are getting quarantined. None of these kids have had to go through something like this, you know, in their own little bubble. So I think what's really important is that you're going to see coaching be the forefront winner for this tournament. It's not necessarily going to be talent. It's going to be can the coaches come up with a game plan that's actually efficient and effective and doesn't rely on the atmosphere, you know?
Yep.
And I think, and that's just how I feel this year's going to be.
Yeah, and the atmosphere is a big part of college basketball. I mean, really a big part of sports, but none other than college basketball because, like you said, the student section, if there was a regular situation, the student section would be right on top of you. So a lot of the games in the regular season would have went different. Seeding in the tournaments would have been totally different in a normal year. These teams didn't have off seasons, like you said, so it really did even up the playing field, for lack of a better term, just because. And I think the committee got it right with a lot of their matchups, kind of not forcing the mid majors to play each other to get them out of there earlier like they would in the past years, because we've seen it plenty of times where they'll put Wichita State and VCU in the same bracket. They both win, and then they beat each other in the
Second
Sweet
round.
16 or the second round. And I'm like, come on, like those teams could have made runs, but they played each other. So I think
they beat up on each other in the second round, and you got they got to play Illinois in the third.
Exactly.
So they just got beat up on for 2 rounds.
Exactly.
And then you got to go play a top 4 team in the nation. Yeah, and that's typically just what goes with seeding. But what I think we're seeing more with the NCAA tournament is that they are kind of respecting these mid majors, and I think a lot of that goes with regular season scheduling. A lot of these teams that we mentioned today played like a lot of teams in the tournament.
They played a lot of the Power 5 schools or played each other.
Yeah. And so I just think it's really important, and this can go on beyond the football and things like that. It's just that you got to schedule the toughest opponents. It sucks that in order to get the respect in the country, you have to beat a Power 5 team. But I understand it and I get it, and so I just think it's really you're seeing that shift. You're seeing those mid-major schools, those good mid-major schools playing good Power 5 schools.
Yep.
And I think it works in everyone's favor, really. I've never understood why it took so long to get to this point. If you're a good team, whether you're in a Power 5 or a mid-major, you know, the win or the loss is equally as impressive, in my opinion. I would rather, you know, UNC is a perfect example this year. They threw in Marquette at the end of the season, and Marquette absolutely beat the brakes off of them.
Yep.
And Marquette's not even that good of a team this year. In fact, I'm pretty sure they had a sub 500 record. And, you know, that just kind of shows that, like, it doesn't matter what conference you're in. It doesn't matter, like, how many good teams you play on a regular basis. These mid-major schools have the talent, and their coaches are just as good in order to, like, really get a good season going.
Yeah, and we're in March, so obviously anything can happen this time of year. And we look forward to seeing how everything plays out with the tournament. We're going to be following along, so you can get our thoughts on the games on Twitter. I'll link everything below. You know, Twitter, SoundCloud, all that stuff will be down below, so you can get our thoughts on the games during the games, pretty much live. And basically, we just we don't necessarily hope that the 3 schools that we listed off go. If they go make the run, so be it. But I'll be okay with any of the mid-major schools making a Cinderella run. I don't really care, as long as
I don't care who it is.
Yeah, as long as they're getting the exposure that they need as a school, I'm all for it, because the more the better for the other schools in their conference, the schools that play their conference in sports and stuff like that. It's just more exposure for those schools.
Absolutely. But like Jalen was saying, you know, we're here because we want to make guesses, like good hypotheticals.
Hypothesis, if you will.
Hypothesis, I guess. Jalen and I would love to be right. We'd love to say that VCU is going to be the team that's going to make, you know, the Elite Eight run this year. And, you know, we want to be right on that, but, you know, it's college basketball. And like I said, anybody can get beat on any given day. And that just goes across the board. Any of these mid-majors can truly make a run. And I think we saw it with Loyola Chicago back in 2018. I think is what year it was. All the way to the Final Four. No one expected that. And so and it's, you know, every year has the potential to be that way. And I just think Jalen and I are here to, you know, try and give that voice to those the mid-majors that really don't get the opportunity to get the kind of publicity that they do. But we want to thank you for tuning in. Like Jalen said, we're going to link everything down below. Follow us at darkhorse_sports on Twitter. Follow our personals. We're going to be in the description below. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.